Good morning, I hope you're having an absolutely fantastic day. Now it is time for another Music Month video, and for those of you who don't know what Music Month is, it is when I choose 5 songs and 1 album that I feel represent a particular theme. Well, this month is going to be slightly different. What I thought I would do is, instead of picking songs and an album that represent a theme, is talk about some of my favourite film music, and in doing so I will be bringing up 5 of my favourite kind of excerpts from film scores and talking about 1 complete film score which I would consider to be my favourite of all time. Film and TV music is arguably one of my biggest passions. It's one of the things that I've always from a very, very young age been incredibly interested in. I thought it would be nice to hear a little bit more about my kind of personal music tastes in that area, instead of just compiling yet another list of depressing indie music. And just as a caveat to this, there is so much film music that I like. What I'm going to be talking about is a very, very narrow part of a huge spectrum of music that I listen to all the time that I absolutely love. So please don't think that my appreciation of film music is limited to the examples that I'm going to give in this video. Composition number 1 is by the amazing Alexandre Desplat and is from his 2014 score for The Imitation Game. Absolutely brilliant film. I actually went to see this in the cinema twice. The piece of music that I'm choosing from that score is just the main suite. I think it's absolutely breathtakingly brilliant and beautiful, and I can remember having such a huge emotional reaction to the kind of the final scene of The Imitation Game. There's a little spoiler alert if you haven't seen it before, but it's the scene at the end when, well, I won't spoil it, but they're all stood around a fire throwing things on the fire. That's all I'll say. And the theme kind of just swells up into that scene, and it's just absolutely amazing. So that's piece number 1. Piece number 2 is from the Michael Dana score for the 2009 film The Time Traveler's Wife, and is called I'm You, Henry. Really sad film that. I can remember going and seeing it with one of my brothers and my parents in Bristol once, like years ago, and I wasn't expecting it to be a kind of big emotional film because I didn't really know anything about it, and yeah, it's really sad. And I love the contrast in that piece of music between the sort of initial kind of slightly anxious feeling to the music, kind of ever so slightly chaotic, I guess. And then you get this absolutely beautiful electric piano that comes in and just plays a very sort of simple chord progression, but it just works really well, and then it's kind of added to when the strings come and sort of reinforce the chords, and it's just, yeah, it's lovely. Piece number 3 is by the absolutely fantastically brilliant Thomas Newman and is from the 1994 film The Shawshank Redemption, which if you haven't seen, then sort your f***ing life out. The part of the score in this instance is So Was Red and then the end titles, which lead perfectly into one another, and they are just some of the most beautiful and kind of inspiring pieces of music that I've ever heard in any film that I've ever seen. And yeah, I know that picking something from The Shawshank Redemption is arguably a bit of a generic choice, but you know, it's generic for a reason because so many people love it because it's so good. The whole of that score is brilliant. In fact, all of the films that I'm talking about, the entire score is absolutely fantastic. I just thought it would be easier to talk about one specific section. But yeah, in the end title, when you hear that timpani roll and the theme just comes in on the strings, it's just so brilliant. Piece number 4 is by Alan Silvestri and is called the Castaway theme, unsurprisingly from the 2000 film Castaway. One of my favourite films of all time, as is The Shawshank Redemption, and the theme from it is just it's just amazing. Like, that's the problem with this video, is I'm just going to be waffling on about how unbelievably beautiful everything is, so sorry about that. Yeah, it's a fantastic piece of music, and an interesting little fact about the music in that film is, with the exception of the Elvis Presley song that plays at the very beginning of the credits, there is no music in it whatsoever until Tom Hanks gets off the island. That was a director's choice to effectively enhance the feeling of isolation that obviously Tom Hanks' character is going through. So when you're watching it, there isn't any music, so it feels very kind of real and lifelike. You feel isolated on this island with him. And as soon as his raft clears that breakwater about 2/3 of the way through the film, he looks back at the island, and then the music starts playing, and it just makes it so emotive and so powerful, the scene. And finally, track number 5 is by obviously Hans Zimmer, because it's impossible to do a list about film music without talking at least once about Hans Zimmer. It's from the 2004 film King Arthur, and it's called Budget Meeting. Now this is the Hans Zimmer style that when I was, 11, 12 years old, just blew my mind with how epic it was. You're young, you want to be a knight riding into battle with this huge epic suite of these massive drums playing behind you as you go in. It's just awesome. I feel like that was a specific era of Hans Zimmer, because there was that era, and then there was the big superhero film era, which I was never really a fan of. I don't really listen to any of the scores from things like Man of Steel or the Batman films, really. Not because I don't like them or I don't appreciate them as film scores, it's just that I found that with his scores for things like The Last Samurai and King Arthur, there were these huge epic bombastic themes that went on, and I felt like in the superhero film era, those weren't quite so prevalent. But these huge epic themes in these historical films were one of the main things that made me be like, fuck me, film music is incredible. And Budget Meeting from the King Arthur score is one of the pieces that I feel like it's got a little bit of the whole score in that one piece. It's huge and dramatic, the drums are so powerful, but then it's also got these great sweeping melodies that go over the top. I'm not very good at articulating and differentiating between film scores. I always just say the same list of adjectives to describe everything, but yeah, it's really, really, really good. But that's quite a stressful one. That's kind of why I chose it. I didn't want everything to just be, you know, music that sounds very beautiful. That one's got a lot of tension to it. So those are my sort of individual excerpts of film score choices. Now, the one film score that I'm choosing as my favorite of all time, and this has always been my favorite film score and probably always will be, and it is James Newton Howard's score for The Village, which came out in 2004. Now, The Village also used to be one of my favourite films of all time, and I still have a really, really fond attachment to it. It's like a very sentimental film for me, and I do think that there are elements of it that are good, but I kind of know now that I'm a little bit older that maybe it's not actually that great a film, but I still think that the score for it is just an absolute masterpiece, and the use of the fantastic violinist Hilary Hahn is kind of what gives it this kind of, I don't know, it just kind of elevates it above any other generic film score because it focused so much on this solo violin. And I think the music of this film is partially why I loved the film so much when I was younger anyway. There are these amazingly beautiful moments in it. Like one scene that springs to mind is when Ivy is holding her hand out waiting for Lucius to turn up when, you know, those we don't speak of have like entered their village, and then when he finally grabs her and pulls her inside and there's this like slow motion move and there's just the beautiful suite from that score comes in. It's something that like I genuinely like find it really hard to explain, but it's one of the best film scores I think ever. And I know that there'll probably be some people that massively disagree with that, and that's fine. It's just got such a huge connection with me, and it's just so beautiful. Like, I just would be amazed if anyone could listen to that score, sit down and listen to it, and not be moved by it. It's absolutely outstanding. It's like breathtaking, and the violin playing, as I said, is brilliant. And it's one of those things I wish that they released it on vinyl. They never did. I would easily spend a couple of £100 on it just because it means that much to me, and I think the music on it is that good. James Newton Howard is probably one of my favourite composers. I love the stuff that he's done on all of M. Night Shyamalan's films, and again, like Lady in the Water, for example, it's such a ridiculously rubbish film. That is a bit rubbish, let's be honest, and yet the music for it I have spent hours of my life listening to because it's absolutely brilliant. Anyway, that's enough of me waffling on about film music to you. Let me know what some of your favourite pieces of film music are down in the comments, and if you agree or disagree with anything I've said, I would love to hear your opinions and thoughts on the various different things I've spoken about today. Are there any specific pieces of music, be it in film, television or a video game, that have just really, really touched you and really moved you and you've just been so kind of connected to? Let me know all of that down there. Thank you so much for watching. It's my birthday tomorrow, so that'll be fun. Have an absolutely fantastic day, and I will see you all very soon.